Hey guys, so Lord here, back again with another action figure review, and today we'll be continuing our looks at the Transformers Legacy Amazon exclusive Wreck and Rule collection with the Deluxe class Impactor. And much like the G2 Leadfoot we took a look at yesterday, he was brought to us by the fine folks over at Hasbro, as well as my good buddy Evil Villain. Click the link in the description below, head on over to his Instagram, give him a follow, and let him know I sent you, all that good stuff. But not only that, this guy was also released in a 2-pack with a fossilizer known as Spindle, who is a female version of the T-Rex skeleton, whose name escapes me, just like the Triceratops one. And no, it's not Transmutate. That was the second release of that mold. Spindle's the third release, but she was retooled into a Spinosaurus, so a little bit different. Just like the Mastodon was, well, retooled into a Mastodon. Either way, this guy came in a 2-pack with her. Don't have her, but I got him, so screw it. We're going to review him all by himself. So with that being said, why don't we cut right to the chase and get into the meat and taters of this review and take a look-see at all this guy has to offer in terms of accessories. And unlike Leadfoot, he gets a little bit more than one. He gets two. He gets a blaster, which will inevitably become the tank turret. And then he gets a wife life-ending knife, because the life of the wife is ended by the knife. And what's cool with this is you can actually take his hand here, spin this around, and plug this in Trapjaw style. So you can have a straight up shank on his wrist. Or, you know, you could even plug it in this way and have it like that, if you wanted to. I thought that was pretty cool. That said, looking at the gun, there are a couple of points you could put it. Mostly on the side here. Maybe right there. But it's not long enough to act as a bayonet, so I personally like to put it here. Like that. And it does give him wrist articulation, because without that, he doesn't have any. It's just whatever the transformation joint is. So, speaking of which, why don't we talk about articulation? Because we've seen this guy on the channel before, this mold anyways, with the Frankentron figure. But his head will rotate side to side. It can kind of look back if you dislodge this. Can do that. Now it's able to like move up and down, but that's not what that's for. It's supposed to lock in like that. Shoulders can go out, rotate back and forth. You can unplug his chest. That's cool. Doesn't stay in very well, at least not on this figure, but it's probably like the third or fourth time they've used it, so mold degradation, not kind to our boy here. Shoulders can go out, back down. He does have a bicep swivel. He's got a single jointed elbow. Again, no wrist articulation unless you put this shank in there, and then you got it. Well, phooey, you can't do that with this gun. I was wondering if he could plug this onto the end of his hand, but no, he just has to hold that. Waist twist, nice and tight. Hips out to the side. They are on like clicky joints, so that's nice. And kick forward and back. He's got a knee swivel, not a thigh cut. Single jointed knee gets you about that much. And he does have ankle pivot, but it goes out and not in. And there's no way to get that in and not keep the knee articulation. So that kind of sucks. But other than that, it's a decent mold. I like the proportions of it. It's chunky. It's pretty sturdy for the most part. I would say the legs are where he falls short the most, and this chest piece popping off is a little annoying, but It's not the end of the world. This cannon on the side here, this can pivot up and down, and you can actually flip this. I don't think you could pop this off per se. Oh, yes, you can. You can pop that right off and send him flying across the room. But let's put this piece back on. I guess if you wanted to, you could plug this onto the end of his hand. Like this. But yeah, it doesn't sync up as well as the knife does. Just kind of looks like a big flat piece of plastic. So more than likely, I am just going to keep that on this piece up here. And keep that folded down over his shoulder. Like that. He looks better this way. I think we can all agree on that one. So, standing him up here. Like I said, he looks good, but, you know. Mold degradation, much like Leadfoot, it's not been kind to this guy. Bringing in our two regulars. We got the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibilith. Right there. And the infamous Unlimited Spawn, who, as usual, towers over everyone. So, with that being said, it's time now that we wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, and aside from some mold degradation affecting my buzz for good old Impactor here, I'm going to say that I still like this figure and think this is a pretty decent mold that was carried over from the Siege era to now. That said, I think we've gotten plenty of better tank Transformers nowadays. The Combaticon Brawl from Age of the Primes being a good example of that, if you got one that didn't have the massive QC issue, that is. But, you know, just like Leadfoot, this guy did suffer some mold degradation due to a ton of reuse, so it's not entirely Impactor's fault that he's meh. So, with that being said, before we wrap this sucker up, why don't we get this guy transformed and take a closer look at his vehicle mode. And as promised, here we have good old Impactor in his tank mode. As I mentioned before, this guy is reuse of that Frankentron figure we looked at many, many moons ago. Around Christmas time, if I'm not mistaken. And not Halloween. You know, the time of year it would have made sense to look at that figure. His wife life-ending knife does store on the little cannon up here. Set that aside. And of course the turret can pivot up and down a little bit. It's very tight on him. So there you go. You can also rotate the tank turret around. And if you really want to count it, you can tilt this up and down too. Little missile pod there. And of course you can roll. Whee! Whee! Pretty sure a tank doesn't go that fast, but he is a little teeny tiny tank, so maybe he does. But that is Impactor in a nutshell. Cool little guy. I dig him. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this review. Until next time, catch you guys later.